little assistance, which as a government we should and do it in time, and therefore we had a Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package. Post that, we also ensured that people don't suffer with having to file their returns or comply with taxation and related things. So in stages, we've announced relief for the MSMEs, NBFCs, and so on. But importantly, Prime Minister had also said, in building a self-reliant Bharat, we should prepare ourselves also for tough competition so that we become strong, we are able to be, first of all, self-reliant, and at the same time, be sure we are strong enough to face the challenges of the global value chains and also be ready to integrate. I repeat, when we talk of self-reliant Bharat, when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are not looking inwards. It's not isolationist policy. It is certainly making India strong, making India rely on its strength and be ready to face the global challenge. Many sectors need policy simplification, whereby we can make it simpler for people to understand what that sector can provide for them, how they can participate in that sectoral related activities, bring in transparency in processes, and so on. So once we decongest sectors, we can also provide the necessary boost. That sector too will become strong enough and competent enough to provide the necessary boost for growth and employment. And as you all know, the Prime Minister has a very strong track record in taking up reforms, deep systemic reforms. I'll just highlight those reforms which are worth recalling. And on those reforms, it was public knowledge, and all of you all covered extensively the efforts that had gone to take everybody on board so that those reforms become everyone's reform. DBT, the direct benefit transfer. Today it's become very useful for us to be able to directly give money in the hands of people. GST, which had been pending for a very long time, all states were taken on board, and GST brought in one nation, one market. IBC, companies waited for decades to have their insolvency-related matters settled. Limited success was felt through the various other programs, schemes which existed, SARFAESI or BIFR and so on. Then the several steps which were taken for ease of doing business so that India becomes an attractive destination for investment. You also had the public sector banks reforms, not only just infusing some equity, but also making sure that they become professionally managed, although they are public sector banks, and performing well, but still they needed to have more professionalism. So that was also, and giving independence for them, because that's an area in which I would take extreme pride to say, between 14 until today, you wouldn't have had one phone call going to any one of the banks saying, give this loan to my cousin or my whoever. No cronyism has been developed through the banks. Direct taxation reforms, Revenue Secretary is here. Most unexpected time, the country saw that a drastic step had been taken, drastic but in a favorable sense. Power sector reforms. Udai was a scheme which was brought in with a great sense of wanting to clean up that sector. It has its challenges, but it was a daring reform. Coal sector, and also water and irrigation. There are many such I can list, but Prime Minister Modi has been absolutely consistent in making sure reforms are taken up. So structural reforms are the focus of today's announcements. Today's announcements are focusing on structural reforms. The sectors in which these measures will be impacting are those sectors with these reforms which are going to be the new horizon for growth. And therefore, we see great potential in more investments which can be drawn with the reforms that we are announcing today. More production can be clearly marked, and certainly it will lead to a lot more employment possibilities. We can actually start off with some preliminary slides before I go into talking about today's announcements, which will explain all the steps that we've taken in the recent past to make sure that investment come into this country and also make India a far more business-friendly destination. Before I go into that, it is important for us to recall that steps which have been taken earlier have been announced variously at different times. And because of the lockdown and because of COVID, I think time feels like as though it's been a long time since the budget was presented. It was only presented on 1st February. And just as soon as the finance bill got passed, the parliament also had to very quickly close for the reasons of social distancing and so on. And just before February, we announced the National Infrastructure Investment Foundation, the fund that was launched. So, and therefore such steps have been taken. Clearly, these are the ones which are going to initiate a lot of things that we want to tell today, and also a lot of things that we want to do towards building an Atma-Nirbhar Bharat. So if we can go to the first slide. The policy reforms to fast-track investments. In the last couple of months, an empowered group of secretaries has been formed who also looked at project development, and project development cells were formed in various ministries. Ranking of states on investment attractiveness is also being worked out. This will make them compete for new investments. And promotion of champion sectors, such as the solar PV manufacturing and so on, the advanced cell battery storage research, these kind of activities are also being given a priority. So for an Atma-Nirbhar Bharat and for Make in India, such steps are crucial, and we want to make sure that efforts which have been taken clearly give us the confidence that Make in India, which was launched at least 3 years back, as an initiative to change the mindset of people, to bring in new ways of doing business, to make sure that India becomes attractive on its strength, are all being received very well. So today, if I look at Make in India for Atma-Nirbhar Bharat, the foundation was laid earlier, and many investors have found that India's market, size of India's market, the aspirational middle class, the rule of law which prevails, and also making sure the talent pool which exists in India makes India an attractive destination for producing for India and also for producing in India and exporting from India. So that is exactly what has been shown here, and incentive schemes are being given for these champion sectors. So we need to clearly understand the purpose with which, when we talk of Atma-Nirbhar Bharat, it is on all these steps building India's strengths. The next slide would show you that attempts and also efforts have already started for upgradation of industrial infrastructure. I'm saying all this because the reform steps that I'm going to announce will have all these also having a play in the various steps that we are announcing. Upgradation of industrial infrastructure is something which we need to talk about afresh, although industrial infrastructure, industrial land banks, and also clusters have been recognized long time back. But they are all somewhat being utilized, many of them lying unutilized. So now, using technology, we are making sure these land parcels are, through GPS, GIS mapping, are able to be identified, location cleared, their challenges being identified, common facilities which have to be created will all be done. 3,376 industrial parks and estates and SEZs have between them, have among them 5 lakh hectares, all of them mapped as industrial information system can map them for future use. So this will be a part of the portal which we'll be running, so that it will be available for any future potential investor to say, I know land exists there, we can go set up a business there. In the meanwhile, the state government working to this with the center is going to provide all the common facilities. So all industrial parks also will get ranked by 2020-21, so that we know what is the level of readiness that they have and how ready they are for competition. So with this said as a broad introductory statement, I just want to highlight the 8 sectors about which we are going to talk, where reforms are being brought in: coal, minerals, defense production. I read out separately the next 3, although they together contribute for flying, airports, and also aerospace related matters. Airspace management, airports, MRO, which is maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So those 3 all go over to the civil aviation area. Distribution companies in the union territories, power distribution companies in the union territories. Space sector, where ISRO and others have been flag bearers for India. Atomic energy. So 8 sectors, but I will be showing you about 10 to 12 slides, all of them explaining each one of these sectors in detail.